A handful of frightened followers suddenly carried the future of the world. A message born in a small corner of Galilee was about to cross oceans and empires, and ordinary people were given an assignment so big that only God himself could make it possible. In Mark 16:9-20, we reach the closing moments of the Gospel, the moment when the resurrected Jesus gives his mission to his disciples. This passage is often called the Great Commission in Mark, and while it echoes what we read in Matthew and Luke, Mark's version has a unique tone, urgent, powerful, direct, and filled with signs that confirm God's supernatural presence. Today, we explore this passage from a different viewpoint, not simply as a list of instructions, but as a window into the transformation of fearful disciples into global messengers and a reminder of the mission that still belongs to us today. The story begins with a surprising choice. Jesus appears first to Mary Magdalene, not to Peter, not to John, not to the leaders, but to a woman with a redeemed past, someone who experienced Jesus not through knowledge but through deliverance. Mark reminds us that Jesus had cast 7 demons out of her, a detail that highlights grace, not shame. Her life had been radically changed, and because of that, she becomes the first witness of the resurrection. Mary rushes to tell the disciples, but they do not believe her. Grief, fear, and confusion close their hearts. The resurrection is too unbelievable, too unexpected. Even though Jesus had told them multiple times he would rise, their pain blinds them to hope. Then Jesus appears in another form to 2 disciples as they walk in the country. They too rush back to tell the others, and again they are not believed. Mark shows us something important here. Disbelief is part of the journey. Even the first disciples struggled to trust the news of the resurrection. Faith did not begin with confidence. It began with doubt confronted by truth. Finally, Jesus appears to the 11 as they are eating. The doors are closed, their hearts are guarded, their minds are fogged with sorrow and fear, and Jesus, in his resurrected body, stands among them. His presence is overwhelming. It is real, it is undeniable. But Jesus does something surprising. He rebukes them. He rebukes their unbelief and hardness of heart, not to shame them, but to prepare them for what comes next. Before he can send them out, he must confront the unbelief that has held them captive. The Great Commission begins with honesty. Before the disciples can carry the gospel to the world, they must let the gospel transform them. Jesus then gives a command that is breathtaking in its simplicity and scope. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. This is not a suggestion. It is not a gentle encouragement. It is a mission, a divine assignment. Jesus shifts their focus from fear to purpose, from hiding to proclaiming, from staying still to moving outward. Go into all the world, not just Judea, not just Galilee, not just to people who think like you or look like you, all the world, across cultures, languages, borders, and barriers. And preach the gospel. Announce the good news. Speak the truth of salvation, forgiveness, and resurrection. Proclaim the message that changes hearts and destinies to all creation. Every person, every nation, every corner of the world. No one is excluded. Jesus gives a mission that expands far beyond what the disciples could imagine. They were fishermen, tax collectors, ordinary people, yet Jesus was entrusting them with a global movement. Then Jesus describes the response to the gospel. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. Belief is the dividing line, not heritage, not performance, not status. Belief in Jesus determines destiny. Baptism becomes the public expression of that belief, not the source of salvation, but the sign of it. Then Jesus adds something that makes Mark's ending unique. These signs will accompany those who believe. Mark lists supernatural confirmations that would follow the early disciples: casting out demons, speaking in new tongues, protection from deadly harm, healing the sick. These signs were not the center of the mission. The gospel was. But they would serve as divine evidence that God was working through the messengers. Jesus is showing his disciples that the mission is impossible without his power. They would not change the world by strategy or intellect alone. They needed the Holy Spirit. They needed God's presence. The signs were proof that the message they carried was not human. It was divine. Next, Jesus is taken up into heaven and sits at the right hand of God, the position of authority, victory, and dominion. The image is powerful, the risen Jesus who conquered death now ruling over heaven and earth. The mission is given, and the King who commands it reigns forever. But the most beautiful part of this passage comes in the final verse. Then the disciples went out and preached everywhere, and the Lord worked with them and confirmed his word by the signs that accompanied it. The disciples who once hid in fear now go out with boldness. The men who doubted now proclaim. The ones Jesus rebuked are now empowered. The transformation is astonishing. What changed them? Not new courage, not new education, not new strategies. It was the risen Jesus and the power of the Holy Spirit. This is the message Mark wants his readers to understand. The Great Commission is not fulfilled by human strength. It is fulfilled by ordinary people, empowered by an extraordinary God. When we look at this passage through a different perspective, several deep truths emerge. First, God chooses unlikely messengers. Mary Magdalene was the first witness. 2 unnamed disciples were the next. The 11, men who had just failed, became the leaders of the mission. God delights in using broken, imperfect people to carry perfect truth. Second, faith requires confrontation. Jesus rebukes the disciples for unbelief. He does not avoid hard truth. He does not pretend their doubt is harmless. He faces it directly because unbelief cannot lead a global mission. Third, the mission is outward, not inward. The gospel is not meant to be hidden behind doors. It is meant to cross oceans, cultures, and generations. The disciples are called to move, to preach, to proclaim. Fourth, the gospel is for everyone, all the world, all creation. The message is global, universal, and inclusive. Fifth, God confirms his word with his power. Signs follow the message. The power of God validates the truth of God. The early church grew not because of human impressiveness, but because of divine presence. Sixth, Jesus reigns as king, even as his people work on earth. He ascends to heaven, not to leave them, but to rule over them, empower them, and intercede for them. Seventh, the disciples do not work alone. The Lord worked with them. This is the heart of the Great Commission. The mission is supernatural. Jesus does not send them out and abandon them. He sends them out and walks with them. From this angle, the Great Commission in Mark is not only a command, it is a promise. Jesus promises his presence, his power, his authority, and his partnership. And this mission still belongs to us. We are called to proclaim the gospel in our workplaces, schools, communities, and across nations. We are called to live with courage, speak with boldness, and trust that God will work through us. We are called to continue what began in that small room with frightened disciples, taking the message of Jesus to every part of the world. The world still needs the gospel. People still need hope. Hearts still need salvation. Nations still need light. And Jesus still works with his people. Mark closes his gospel not with a quiet ending, but with a launching, a sending, a commissioning. The resurrection is not the finish line, it is the starting line. Jesus did not rise from the dead for his followers to stay silent. He rose so they would spread the message everywhere. This is the great calling of the church. This is the purpose of every believer. This is the heartbeat of the gospel. We are sent because he was raised. We go because he lives. We preach because he reigns. We proclaim because he is returning. The Great Commission is not just their mission, it is ours. The world is still waiting, and Jesus is still working with everyone who carries his name. Thank you for watching this message. If this teaching encouraged your faith and inspired you to live out the mission of Jesus, please like this video, follow the Holy Path Insights channel, share it with someone who needs the gospel today, and continue watching our full series as we walk through the teachings of Christ together.